Edmund Harlan is 34 years old, a physician on Sutter Street in San Francisco. The night is May 18, 1903. The man across the bar has just said no automobile will ever cross this continent, and Edmund has just said $50. Edmund came west from Burlington, Vermont 2 years ago following a winter that disagreed with his lungs. He has a practice, a boarding house room, and a belief in machines that most men still consider toys. He has driven an automobile twice. 4 days later, he finds the car on Market Street, a 1903 Winton Touring Car, cherry red, open cockpit, no windshield, no roof. 2 cylinders, 20 horsepower, chain drive. He pays $800 and names it Vermont. He hires Cal Briggs, 28, a mechanic from Reno who came to San Francisco looking for work. Cal examines the Vermont for a long time without speaking. Then he says he can make it run and asks when they leave. May 23, 1903. They cross the bay on the Oakland ferry at 6 in the morning, the Vermont lashed to the car deck. On the far shore, Edmund cranks the engine. They head north, not east. The Nevada desert had already stopped one Winton. The Sacramento Valley in late May is flat and warm in a way that feels nothing like the problem ahead. They run at 19 miles per hour through orchards and farming country, the Vermont trailing pale dust north toward Redding. Oregon starts on the 3rd day. The road narrows and Douglas firs close in on both sides, and the air comes cold off the mountains. There is no map for this road. Edmund follows the railroad north and trusts that it knows where it goes. Outside Medford, a front tire blows on gravel, and the Vermont skids sideways into a shallow ditch. Cal has one spare, the last right-sized tire either man could find in all of San Francisco. He fits it in the ditch in 15 minutes, saying nothing. There are no gasoline stations in Oregon in 1903. Edmund carries fuel in cans on the running board, enough for 80 miles. He stops at hardware stores, mill offices, and one sheep ranch whose owner shares gasoline from a generator tank without being asked. Idaho arrives on the 5th day, the land dropping from Oregon mountains into the wide Snake River plain. The road here is pressed alkali earth, better than Oregon gravel. The Vermont opens to 22 miles per hour east of Caldwell. In Caldwell, Idaho, a stray bulldog follows the Vermont for 3 blocks before Edmund stops. Cal says they cannot take a dog across the country. Edmund pays a rancher's boy $2 for a leather strap and makes a collar. The dog becomes Scout. Scout cannot tolerate road dust at speed. Cal cuts 2 circles from a boot sole, perforates them with the tip of his knife, and fits the result over the dog's wide face. The goggles buckle behind Scout's ears. He wears them without protest. Before we follow Edmund any further, if this is the kind of story you've been looking for, subscribe to the channel. Every video here is built around a real car, a real road, and a life that changed somewhere on the asphalt. No filler. If that matters to you, the subscribe button is how you tell us. And leave a comment. If you've ever driven a road that had no right to be driven in a car that had no business making it, tell us what car, what road, and what it felt like. Now, back to Edmund, Cal, and Scout. Wyoming enters cold, even in late June. They come down from Idaho's high country into the Sweetwater River Basin, the sky expanding in every direction. The Vermont's engine runs rough at altitude, the chain rattling a slower, lower note through the long climbs east. Between Laramie and Rawlins, they lose the road and Edmund's billfold in the same afternoon. They drive for 36 hours without food. Scout is given the last biscuit from Cal's kit. Edmund does not mention this in any letter home. A cook at a cattle ranch outside Rawlins feeds both men and Scout without being asked and without presenting a bill. Cal offers to pay twice. She refuses twice. Edmund records her name in his notebook, Mrs. Amos, Rawlins, and nothing else beside it. The Wyoming plains east of Rawlins are the widest either man has seen. The road runs straight across high desert further than the eye separates from sky. The Vermont reaches 26 miles per hour and holds it for 40 minutes. Nebraska enters on the 20th day and immediately makes arguments. June rains have turned the trails into slow black rivers of soil. The Vermont drops to 8 miles per hour in the mud and stays there. They count 11 miles on the worst afternoon. The left front drops into a rut southeast of Kearney and will not come out. Cal works it with a fence post for 50 minutes. 3 men from the nearest farm come across the field without being asked. The Vermont comes free. Scout watches from the running board. They reach Omaha on the 24th day and are met at the edge of town by a delegation from the local automobile club. 12 men who have been tracking the Vermont's progress by telegraph. Edmund shakes every hand. Cal checks the rear axle. Scout stays in the car. Iowa offers what Nebraska could not. The trails are graded and the mud gives way to packed dirt. The Vermont opens back to 20 miles per hour. Edmund calculates they have covered 3,000 miles. He doesn't say it aloud, and it seems like tempting something. In Rock Island, Iowa, a Chicago Tribune reporter meets them with a photographer. Cal would rather not stop. Edmund stops. Scout sits upright in the driver's seat wearing his goggles. That photograph, a bulldog in leather goggles behind a steering wheel, runs in papers from Chicago to Boston. Illinois roads are the best surface they have driven. Packed gravel through flat farmland north of Springfield. The Vermont reaches 28 miles per hour for 45 minutes, the longest sustained speed of the trip. Cal adjusts the throttle forward one small notch and neither man speaks. In Chicago, a crowd of 200 gathers outside the Palmer House around the Vermont. Someone offers Edmund $500 for the car. Edmund says no. Someone offers $1,000. Edmund says no again and goes inside to eat his dinner. Indiana opens flat and humid east of Chicago. They follow the national road through Terre Haute and Greencastle, through towns that still time the day by the mail wagon. The Vermont moves through all of it like news the towns already know they are about to receive. In Cleveland, the Winton Motor Carriage Company sends a man to meet them at the city limits. The Vermont is a Winton built in this city, and what Edmund and Cal have done with it is the best advertisement the company never planned. Edmund thanks him. Cal checks the chain. The Vermont's mechanical odometer rolls past 4,000 miles somewhere in northeastern Ohio on the afternoon of the 45th day. Edmund watches the number turn. Cal is looking at the road. Scout is asleep in the footwell on the toolkit. Pennsylvania is the oldest road country in America, and it shows. The Lancaster Pike is stone-paved in places and a creek bed in others. The Appalachians wait ahead. Green ranges running north to south across the whole state like one last argument against a rival. The front right tire has been cracking along the inner circumference since Indiana. Cal wraps it with leather cut from a spare boot. Not a repair. A negotiation with a tire that has carried the Vermont 4,000 miles and is deciding whether to carry it further. The Appalachian ridges are smaller than Wyoming and more insistent. Ridge after ridge at 90 degrees to the road, each one pulling everything from the engine. By the third ridge, Edmund's arms are shaking from the chain drive and the corrugated stone. New Jersey comes after Pennsylvania like a change in weather. The roads improve and the air carries something it hasn't since San Francisco. Salt water, the smell of the ocean. The Vermont runs quieter here as though it understands something is close to finished. July 26th, 1903. They leave a hotel outside Newark at 4 in the morning, 63 days from San Francisco. The Vermont starts on the second crank. Cal takes this as a good sign. Edmund's hands are on the wheel the way they have been since Wyoming. They cross the Hudson by ferry. No bridge for automobiles yet exists. The crossing is 14 minutes. Edmund stands at the bow rail watching Manhattan grow out of the morning haze. Cal stays with the Vermont. Scout sits in the driver's seat. When the Vermont's wheels touch Manhattan cobblestones, the city engulfs them without ceremony. Elevated trains above, horses beside, coal smoke and salt water, everything happening at once. Edmund drives north up the island without stopping because stopping now would feel like a different kind of giving up. Edmund parks the Vermont on 5th Avenue at 4 in the morning, 63 days from San Francisco. 4,900 miles by the odometer, 3 bent springs, 1 cracked tire. The machine is still running when he turns it off. Scout sits in the driver's seat of the Vermont on 5th Avenue at 4 in the morning wearing his leather goggles. 2 policemen stare. A milk delivery man stops his horse and stands looking at the dog for a long time before moving on. The man who made the bet, whose name is Whitfield, is still asleep. Edmund sends a telegram at the nearest Western Union. Arrived 5th Avenue. Vermont performed, $50. The reply comes that afternoon with a $50 bill folded inside. The trip costs Edmund $8,000, fuel, repairs, parts, food, lodging, the car itself, and $2 for Scout's leather collar. The $50 bet returns a net loss of $7,950. He does not appear to find this objectionable. By afternoon, several hundred people are on Fifth Avenue around the Vermont. 3 newspapers send reporters by mid-morning. The photograph of Scout in his leather goggles, upright in the driver's seat, the city behind him, runs in 24 papers inside the week. Every reporter asks what the hardest part was. Edmund says Wyoming. 36 hours without food, no road, no money. The papers write Nebraska instead because Nebraska is easier to explain. Edmund stops correcting them after the 3rd interview. A reporter asks Cal what the most impressive moment was. Cal says the chain held through Wyoming. The reporter writes something else. Cal is fine with this. He has been thinking about the chain since Ohio and what he would change if he ever did this again. What Edmund and Cal drove across in 1903 was not crossable. By most reckoning, there were 150 miles of paved road in the entire country, all within city limits, and no gasoline stations outside them. They went anyway and filled in the blanks as they went. Edmund keeps the Vermont for 2 years after the trip, using it for Sunday drives around San Francisco. In 1905, he donates it to the Vermont Historical Society in Burlington. The society accepts. It is the most interesting thing they have received in years. Cal Briggs opens an automobile repair shop in Sacramento in 1905, one of the first in the Central Valley. He is busy within the week. By 1910, he has 4 employees and a waiting list. He crosses the continent once. He considers that sufficient. Scout retires to Burlington, Vermont, in Edmund's house on College Street. He lives 8 more years, develops a preference for the front seat of every automobile Edmund drives. He dies at 11 in the sun on the front porch in the summer of 1911. Edmund returns to Burlington in a different kind of practice. In 1917, at 48, he enlists as a medical officer and serves in France, a different kind of crossing. He drives automobiles for the rest of his life. His last recorded trip is in the spring of 1941. In 1903, there were roughly 8,000 automobiles in the United States. By 1913, 1 million. By 1925, 17 million. The Lincoln Highway, finished in 1913, followed portions of the route Edmund drove through Idaho and Wyoming. Some of it is now Interstate 84. Some of it is nothing. The Winton Motor Carriage Company builds automobiles until 1924, then converts to marine and industrial engines. The 2-cylinder, 20-horsepower engine that carried Edmund and Cal and Scout from San Francisco to New York is by then considered primitive. Progress has a way of making the past look smaller than it was. There is a road through the Idaho sage country where Edmund drove in 1903. It has been paved and numbered and driven by millions of people who have no reason to know what came before it. Most roads are like this. They forget faster than the people who drove them. The Vermont was donated to Burlington in 1905. The road west still runs where Edmund drove it. It doesn't remember who came first. If these road stories are what you want to keep watching, subscribe to the channel. More cars, more roads, more lives lived behind a steering wheel that meant something. And if you ever drove a car like this or knew someone who did, tell us in the comments. What car, what road, where it took you. The cars remember everything. So do the people who drove them.